Hi, and welcome to Orbis Multiplex, a complex, simulation-oriented economy management game on planetary scale. Today, I'd like to talk about the latest system I've implemented, which is the transportation system. This replaces the old system, which was very bare bones and just a temporary system. The new system allows us to create roads on specific tiles. Here is shown graphics for 4 different kinds of roads. If we click on a tile, we can see that I've updated the tile GUI a bit. There is now this economy tab, which has 4 sub-tabs, which is industry, resources, and transportation. In the transportation, we can see what kind of road is being built on that specific tile. This, for example, has a trail. This is a road. This is a railway. And this is a highway. These 4 examples are just some temporary things. It's more a proof of concept. Some of them have inputs, like the highway takes oil as input to operate, and the railway takes coal. They have different capacities. The trail has maximum capacity of 100, the road of 500, the railway 2000, and the highway 5000. The capacity, as we will later see, is a limit which the capacity, which we will later see, is a limit to how many resources can be transported on that tile. So let's look at an example. Here we have 2 networks which are identical apart from one thing. One of them have trails and the other one have roads. And what this system will do is that the farm here on the left, in both situations, will feed the residences, kick-started by a self-sustaining village. That will spread labor to the right, to lumber mills, which will start operating and spreading wood in the network. So, if we change our map filter to labor, if I can click it, and start running, we will see that labor is being generated to the left and it's spread throughout the network. At the moment, the 2 networks are operating with equal capacity, but we will soon see that the top network will start to get bottlenecked. We can sort of see it now. The bottlenecking is caused is a lack of capacity. If we run this a bit more, we can see that, resources aren't being transported optimally. We can see this in another way if we go to economy here and down to transport capacity usage. The color of these tiles is a measurement of how much of the capacity of a road that is being used at the moment. This green here is 0.23, so 23%. This red here, 87, 75, 82, 47. When we run this, we see that, and red tiles can be considered bottleneck. We can see that the top network has a lot of bottlenecking. If we go back to look at labor, in this case, there is a lot of labor here, like 160, 140, 90. This is labor that, because of the bottleneck, cannot reach the industries that need it. Whilst in this lower case, we only have 22 around here. So we have no hold up in labor. If we look at industry input satisfaction, we can see that the lower industries here are getting more of the input they require. These 2 lumber mills here are getting no laborers input at all. This is getting some. It varies. Some iterations it doesn't get any at all, and other iterations it do get. It has to do with these resources. They are being like choked up through the network. Okay, so this shows the importance of building roads with sufficient capacity. Now, the second network we have here, I just need to complete it, shows a limitation in the current implementation. In this case, we have a farm, which is connected to a set of residences here, and we have lumber mills. One would assume that the best path for the grain to travel is this short road here, and not the long way around. So we can look at grain. But a limitation of the system is that resources are transported pretty stupidly. We see here that grain is being transported both on this short road, but also on the long road. A good system should implement feedback from where resources are being consumed. The feedback should make it such that this road should be used more often than this long road. It should be weighted. But that's not happening at the moment. And a similar thing should be the case for labor. Labor is needed by the farm here, but it also needed by the lumber mills. So labor should be transported along this road here and this road here, but not this road here, because it's not an optimal solution. Now, if the system was bottlenecked, then this long road would also be used, but at the moment it's not bottlenecked. So this is a limitation in the current implementation, and is something that I will need to fix later on. Apart from that, this is the system as it exists at the moment. On its own, it doesn't add that much to gameplay, but it's a good foundation to be used later on. Another thing I should mention is that since roads have inputs, like this highway has oil and this railway has coal, and this can be changed, of course. You can have roads that require electricity or hydrogen or whatever. These inputs enable you to, in the long term, to model fuel consumption by transportation networks. So it could, for example, be interesting if you had a pretty huge transportation network dependent on coal, let's say, and or oil, and you lose that resource. That would cause a collapse in the system, as roads don't get the fuel they require. Their capacities decrease, which will prevent resources from being transported, and that can very quickly spiral out of control. So that would be nice to model in the future. So that's what I've done so far. Now, what am I gonna do next? Well, one obvious thing to do is fix this damn next turn button. At the moment, if we want to see resources being transported, we have to spam this, which is pretty annoying. I've clicked this like 242 times during these few minutes, and you can imagine that if you play for an hour, you would have to press this probably a couple of thousand times. That's not realistic. So I'm gonna make this automatic. That turns should progress on their own, and the length of the one such turn, or maybe a tick is a better word, should maybe be 5 or 10 seconds. That has to do with how expensive the simulations are to run, because they need to be done multi-threaded and in such a way that they do not interfere with FPS. They should be run automatically, but the FPS should never drop below 60. At the moment I go down to about 4 FPS if I spam this. That's not acceptable. So there is some engineering to be done to make that smooth. And apart from that, I also want to start implement a separate population system very soon. At the moment, populations are sort of modeled using these residences. They take food as input and labor as output. But it's always been the plan that the population systems should be separate from the industry system. Like each tile that is inhabited by the player should have a population value. Maybe there lives 100 people there, 1,000 or 1 million, I don't know. And they should consume resources and output stuff like labor. But labor should not be output by an industry, as is the case here. It should be outputted by the population itself. And you can have populations that of different kinds. You could have populations that output normal labor. You could have populations that output maybe 50% normal labor and 50% skilled labor, if that is something I add. Like skilled labor could be something that the upper class generates and is needed for some of the more advanced industries, things like that. Populations could also consume more things than just food. They could consume stuff like jewelry, clothing, fuel, depending on the class. Like maybe if I model it such that a population can be divided between lower class, middle class and upper class, the lower class might only require food as input, whilst the middle class, maybe it requires some fuel and clothing as well, and the upper class requires luxuries like jewelry or something. That could be rather nice, but that's a bit in the future. Maybe by the end of the month, or to be more realistic, in April is a good timeline for that. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye.